your system information. Many of you probably don't have this field created yet. If you do have this field created already, just put a green checkbox in the participant panel so I can see who did it. And if you don't have it, we're going to create it right now as a group.
I think we created, but we didn't add it to the page layout.
Okay, do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on the back end and take a look. So let's head over to setup. And Sarah and Cynthia and whoever is volunteering, if you can monitor the chat, because I can't really see it when I'm presenting. So I don't know what they're talking about.
I'm watching it.
Okay, cool. All right, I didn't click inventory object. Okay, when you get to your inventory object, go to fields and relationships. And in the quick find, type in opportunity and see if you have it. It probably even makes sense for us to name this opportunity purchase order, because on the inventory item, when we look at this page, it probably makes better sense to just label this field here purchase order. So I'm gonna change the name of mine. Check and see if you guys have it. Because I want to make it really clear to my end users and my staff what this field does. So that's why I'm going to change it to purchase order. So if you've already created the opportunity field, just change it to purchase order. If you have not created it, then what I want you guys to do is to create a lookup field. So that would allow the inventory to look up the related opportunity. And then on the related opportunity, it will display the inventory items as a related list. So as you probably recall in our earlier classes, we talked about, I'm going to open up my Andy Young purchase order so we can take a look at it. We talk about in relational databases, what makes Salesforce an awesome tool and why people use it is because unlike a two-dimension flat Excel file, we are able to see lots of different type of information in one spreadsheet without having duplicate items, right? So here we have the Andy Young purchase order, and we can see each inventory item that is related to this opportunity. And the reason why we can see it is because on these inventory items, there is a lookup field that's connecting those inventory items to this opportunity. So these line items here, it's called a related list. And you guys worked on if you did your homework for your Lightning Experience customization, you would have already done some of this work already. So I'm just pointing out to you that when you see related data itemized on an object, that is because there is some sort of lookup item or a lookup field or master detail relationship that is connecting both of the objects. So let's make sure that you have it. If you don't, Vidya, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, I wasn't sure if you could see it. Okay, so go to Fields and Relationships and hit New. And select Lookup Relationship. So the description here is it creates a relationship that links this object to another object. The relationship fields allows users to click on a lookup icon to select a value from a pop-up list. The other object is the source of the values in the list. What that means is, if I was on my inventory item, the way that I go about relating the two is by clicking on that lookup icon to find Andy Young's opportunity. So if I was on an inventory and I needed to add him, I would go ahead and I could search that opportunity and link it right here. That's the lookup icon. So hit next. and then say which object you want that inventory item related to. And in this case, we want it related to our opportunity. So just find it in the list and hit next. And then here is where you're going to name it purchase order. And you can leave it as inventory 1 and hit next. And then here again is where we're telling Salesforce what profiles we want this lookup to be available to. So let's just leave the defaults and hit next again. And then on this page, Salesforce is asking us which layouts we want this opportunity to apply to, this opportunity field to apply to. So we want to make this available to both our accessory layout and our vehicle layout. We want both. And then hit next. And then here is where we're going to say what we want that related list label to be called and what page layouts we want it to be on. So I just added it to all the related lists because I know we created the custom Coggan purchase layout and service layout, and then there are these 4 that came out of the box. So it really is the first 2, but it doesn't hurt to just select all. And the related list label that we want to use is what will appear here. Sorry, I clicked that by accident. So on our purchase order layout, when we create a lookup, what ends up happening is that a related list gets created on that object. So as soon as you guys finish creating that field, you're going to get this inventory too. I mean, you have to add it to the page layout. It won't happen automatically, but to the Lightning record page layout. But this is what you would be getting. So you need to tell Salesforce what you want this to be called, right? So I just named it inventory. And because this purchase order has 2 inventory items attached to it, it's why you see 2 in parentheses. It's just counting how many items are here. Because Salesforce is going to truncate it. Like if we had 15 inventory items here, Salesforce is not going to list all 15 and take up page space. You have to go ahead and hit view all to see them all. So that's why this number 2 becomes useful. So very quickly you can look at it and see how many inventory items are related to the purchase order. So go ahead and name your related list inventory. That way you can be sure you know what beta is being pulled onto that record. And then by default, they actually put the word opportunity in parentheses, and they're just doing that because they're telling you that inventory is the actual object in Salesforce's opportunity, but we named it. We're naming it inventory so that it's easier for our users to find. So I would just say delete the word inventory, the word opportunity after it. Just leave inventory so that on your page layout it appears like mine. It'll just say inventory, and then save it. And then when you're done doing that, just go ahead and put a check mark in the participant panel so they know that you're done.
Hi, Selena. I have a question. Actually, I have my that purchase order lookup field created.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I cannot see it on my record page.
Right. We're going to do that next. Okay. So green checkbox whenever you're done creating the lookup field, and then we're going to go ahead and edit our Lightning record page and our page layout so that it appears. Anyone having trouble creating the lookup? You might not see it appear in your page layout yet because we have to edit our Lightning record page in order for it to appear. So don't worry about if you don't see it yet. Just make sure that it's actually created and you have a field on inventory.
Selena, it's Sarah.
Mhm.
So I already did all that.
Mhm.
I'm trying to change the name of like the child relationship name, I guess they called it, when you go under field and relationship.
You mean you're trying to change the related list
Yeah,
name?
yeah, I'm trying to change the name to the one you just mentioned. And I'm not sure, like when I go to edit, I don't know if I should put it on the related list label or the child relationship name.
It's the related list label.
Okay.
Because what we're doing here is this is the related list.
Yeah.
It's the label of the related list.
Okay. Thank you.
We can change it to inventory. Anybody else having any trouble?
I remember when I originally had done this that I had to actually go back and delete the lookup to create the master detail.
We're not creating a master detail in this case. So do not create a master detail.
Okay.
In this case, so you're going to have a homework assignment that we're going to review on next week when we have our next class, when we have our security class. And we'll talk about master detail relationships. But right now, for this purpose, we're only doing a regular lookup. So if your field is a master detail, then we need to change it. So go ahead and look at your fields and relationships, and whatever the name of your field is, if it's opportunity or purchase order, make sure that the data type is lookup and not master detail. The reason is because if we create a master detail record on here, it will be required every time we create an inventory item. And why would that be a problem in our data model? If you create a master detail, it will make that master detail field required for every record that you create for inventory. So why would that be an issue in our data model? Anybody know the answer?
Is it because like you always have to assign like a like person or like a thing to the
Yep.
yeah.
The purchase order. This field here, this is a lookup. If you make this field a master detail, it will become required anytime you create a new inventory item. But we don't want this field to be required because the vehicle, when we enter them in Salesforce, they're not sold yet, right? So Salesforce is going to force us to link it to a purchase order, and we don't want that, right? So I'm going to give you guys a homework assignment that goes into more detail about the difference between master detail and lookups. I did assign you, I think I assigned you a video a couple weeks ago to look at, but I'm going to give you something to kind of go through on Trailhead just so that it explains it more and there's more detail. But that's one of the reasons why, in this case, we would use a lookup instead of a master detail, because we don't want that field required. Okay, I don't really see any green checks in the box, so I'm not sure how you guys are doing. Is anybody having trouble creating the lookup? Or, in Farah's case, renaming the label?
Yeah, Selena, this is Swan. I was having trouble editing the opportunity lookup, so I ended up creating a new purchase order lookup because it wouldn't let me edit the opportunity.
What do you mean it wouldn't let you edit the opportunity?
Like basically, I tried to go to the opportunity and rename it to purchase order.
Oh,
But-
the field you mean?
Yeah, the field, and it wouldn't let me do that.
Okay, so what you would have needed to do is you would have went to the inventory item object, and then you would have found your field. So that was the question that Farah was just asking, right? And then from here, you would have edited it here. And then you should be able to make an update to your related list label by changing this.
Okay.
Okay.
So changing that to inventory.
Correct.
Okay. It's probably still at inventory one from what we did. Yeah, it's still at inventory.
Well, the inventory one would have been the child relationship name.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that when you create that's the weird thing about Salesforce. When you first create the lookup item, they give you the opportunity to like select the child name and then put the label. And then when you go back to make an edit, the only way that you can make that edit is by like just heading over to the field and then just making the change right in that label field. So the page layout appears a little bit different than when you first created it.
Got it. Thank you, Selena.
Yeah. Anybody else? Because I know, for all of you guys who have completed it, because I believe Annabelle reviewed this in her class. For all of you guys that had already created the lookup or the master detail and deleted the master detail or converted it back to a lookup, you would need to just go in and rename it. Everyone else needs to create it for the first time. And I realized a bunch of people hadn't created it for the first time because during office hours, the instructor was saying that some of you guys were missing the lookup field. So that's why we're going through this again. So I realized some of you have it and some of you don't, which is why we're taking the time to go through these steps. Okay? So I don't see any more check marks, but I'm just going to clear it and keep going unless someone says something else. So now I want to make sure that I improve my UI, because when I look at my Andy Young purchase order and I look at my inventory related list on the right-hand side, all I see are these IDs, right? And I would have to click into it to see the details of what that is, right? If I'm looking at Andy Young's purchase order, I have no idea what he bought, right? I would have to go and click into the record in order to see it. And we don't want to do that. We want to make it so that we can see some of the details of the inventory item right here on the page that we're looking at. So does anybody know how we would go in and add columns so that we don't just see the ID? We could see the name of the vehicle, the make, the price. Does anybody know where we go to make that edit to the related list?
Like select field to display?
Nope. That's how you make edits on the list views.
List views.
So let's look at the list views. When we have, hold on one second. When we have a list view, if we want to change the values that appear in the list view, right, the fields, then we can go in and put select fields to display. But this is a list view. We're talking about related lists. So how do we go ahead and change the fields that are displayed in the related list? Does anybody know?
Would you go to the opportunity page layout?
Yep, that's the first step. So we would go to the opportunity page layout. So let's go ahead and edit this object by clicking on the gear icon and going to edit object. Because we want to take a look at the page layout. Because when we're on this page, what we're actually looking at is our page layout, right? The way that the fields are organized on the page or within the Lightning components, this is our page layout. And the order of these fields and what appears on here is determined by the page layout. And we can find the page layout in the back end of Salesforce. So we're going to head over to the opportunity back end and we're going to go to our page layout. And we're going to edit our two page layouts. We have two, the Coggin purchase layout and the Coggin service layout. And mine says Coggins, so I need to take that S out. But let's start with the purchase layout. Click on that. And then, do you know, who was that just answered the question?
That was Nikolai.
Okay. And where do we go next? Do you know the next step?
You would scroll down to your related list, or I think you
Yep.
just click the top.
Yep. There's two ways to get to your related list. Either you scroll down to the bottom, or you look on the left-hand side here and you click related list. All it's going to do is jump you to the bottom of the page, right? They're both ways will take you to the related list. Either scroll to the bottom or click related list. Now we're looking at all of our related lists, right? These are all the related lists that are available. So one thing for you guys to note here, because this could be a little bit confusing to people, is even though in Salesforce, on the back end, in my page layout, I see all of these related lists, there are a bunch of them, right? And there are other ones that are sitting up here that I haven't even added to my page layout, right? But when I'm looking at the record in Lightning, I'm looking at my Lightning record page, I only see one, and that's inventory. And the reason is because there are two different types of page layouts. One is the page layout that determines the order of your fields and what appears in the related list. So that's like everything that's in this white box, right? In this white box, this is determined by the page layout. Third item on the left, right? So the page layout, this is, you can see all the fields that are showing up here in the same order that we have it on this page, right? We can go ahead and we can reorder and we can change, or we can do anything that we want to do to this page and display it the way we want it to display. The second type of layout is your Lightning record page itself. So the Lightning record page is what you see on this page, the order of the Lightning components on the page. So what we're looking at right now is a Lightning record page, right? And then all of these boxes, we have this box up here, we have this box in the middle, we have this box on the bottom, we have two boxes on the right-hand side. That's our Lightning record page layout. And all of these boxes are a Lightning component. So within Salesforce, you can develop Lightning components, or you can use standard out-of-the-box components. We haven't developed any components in this class. We're using standard out-of-the-box components, and we're putting them on the page. So if we wanted to add another related list, if we wanted to see notes or open activities, we would need to go ahead and add it to the Lightning record page. Otherwise, we're not going to see it, right? And secondarily, one thing for you guys to remember, even if you add it to the Lightning record page, if the related list is not added to the page layout, you'll never see it, right? It has to be added to the page layout first, and then you have to go to the Lightning record page, edit the page, and add it there. So let's finish the steps that Nikolai was walking us through. So he asked us to jump down to our related list. Nikolai, where do we go next?
I have no idea.
Okay. You did have it right, though. Does anybody else want to answer what the next step is? Remember, because I talked about a bunch of other things, I don't want to confuse you guys. What we're doing right now is we're trying to edit this inventory component here, this related list, to show other columns of data. Because right now, when we look at this page, this INV number tells us nothing about what Andy actually bought. We would have to click into it. And we don't want our staff who are super busy to have to keep clicking into records when we can literally display additional columns right here in the Lightning component. Anybody want to answer where do we go next? We already know that the page layout controls what we're going to see. So now what do we need to do?
Go to inventory related list and click the gear icon.
There's not which icon? So there's not an update icon.
Yeah, it's not an update.
Do you know the answer, Dylan?
You just click the wrench above inventory.
Wrench, yeah.
Correct. You click the wrench icon. The wrench icon is to edit, right? And then here, you can now say, what fields do I want displayed on that related list? So right now, you see it's only inventory item. That's why we can only see this ID, because that's all we have displayed here. If we want to see other things, then we need to add them, right? So maybe we want to add record type, so we know if it's an accessory or a vehicle. So I'm going to add record type. And then I want to add the name, the name of the actual item. So I'm going to put model in there. And I'm going to put amount and quantity. And then I just move quantity to be on top of amount. You can add them using these two buttons, and you can reorder them using these two buttons. You can also tell Salesforce how you want this sorted. So if you want it sorted by price, you can do that, like low to high. You can sort it by quantity. I'm just going to leave it as the default, but you can sort so that when these items are populated on your related list, if you were to sort it by amount, for example, it will order them by the amount field on this related list. But we don't really care what order it's in. It's not that important. So I'm going to leave it as default.
We don't have a field total amount, Selena.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
We
too.
don't have a total amount.
Okay, we'll create that field. So just leave that off for now. That's because I had added a couple of additional fields after your class, and I wasn't sure how far Annabelle had gotten with you guys, so we'll go back and add that field. So just go ahead for now and just add the other ones. And then we'll go back and create the total amount field. And then here on the bottom, just keep scrolling, because sometimes people don't realize that there's more down here because it cuts it off. But if you scroll down, they're asking you here, where do you want to apply this column information so that we don't have to go back to each page layout and do it one at a time. Salesforce gives you the option to quickly just check all of these so that these columns appear for each of these. So one of the things that we might want to do is display these columns just for our vehicle, right, type, because this model field doesn't make sense for accessory, right? So that means when we're looking at the accessories, we don't want that actual column to appear. Like, we could do that. But right now, let's just go ahead and select this column information to appear on all of our page layouts. And then let's just hit OK for this. Is everybody still with us? If you're not, then let me know. No, so Himita, price and total amount are not the same fields.
Okay, thank you.
Because remember, we added a quantity field last week. So
Yes.
the price is the price of the item, and then the total amount is price times quantity. So let's just save this, and then let's go back and let's add the total amount field so that you guys, when we create our report, you can see the actual value of the complete opportunity. So in fields and relationships, you guys should be experts at this now. I'm going to show you my field, and you can copy it. Sorry, it's not on inventory. It's not on opportunity. The field belongs on inventory. So just go to your object manager. And look for your inventory object. Go to fields and relationships. And make sure you have the quantity field. If you don't have the quantity field, then we'll create that one as well, because you can't create this formula without it. So make sure you have it. And then go ahead and create a formula field. And call it total price. So you would hit formula, next. Name it total price, or total amount, sorry. And then make the value a currency. Sorry, my screen just went black. My HDMI cord came out. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah, we can still see the screen.
Okay. I can't. It's black. Just give me a second while I reconnect. Find my camera, because now that's gone. Alright, I can see you guys again. Good. Alright, so we're going to go here and hit new. We're going to create a formula. The type is going to be currency because we want the total amount in dollars. So we're going to name it total amount. And then we're going to make it 2 decimal places because we need to see the dollars and cents because this is a currency. And then here, when we're creating a formula, we're going to first go and find the fields, the 2 fields that we want. And just like we would do in Excel, we would use the same syntax that we would use to create a formula in Excel. So let's hit insert field. First, make sure that you're in the advanced formula tab. And we're going to hit insert field. And then here, it's asking you, in the first one, we can see that there's a little arrow for the inventory object. So it's pointing to all the fields that are available to be pulled into our formula on the inventory object. So we need to search for quantity, right? Quantity. And here, it's just grabbing the API for us, because remember, we use the API to connect data into Salesforce, but we also use that API to write our formulas. So let's go ahead and just hit insert. And then we want to multiply that quantity by the price of the item, right? Because if Andy buys Michelin tires and the tires are $200 each and he buys 4 of them, we want that formula to say 4 times $200. If Andy buys an Acura, which he did, and he paid $40,000 for it, we want the quantity to be one Acura times $40,000. And then we want to build a report, right, to show us what is the total amount of our purchase orders for today or for this year or for this fiscal year. And then what it's going to do is it's going to add up the total value from each of our inventory items, right? So 1 times 40,000 and then 4 times 200 is going to add those 2 amounts up, and it's going to put that value in our report. So then we can see what the total value of that purchase order was. So here we're going to go quantity. You can either type in the multiplication sign, or you can pick it from this operator button, right? So same thing. I just put in the multiplication sign, or I can just go to my keyboard and type in the multiplication sign. So now we need the other field. We need the amount field. So we're going back to the inventory object. We're looking at all of the fields that are related that are available on the inventory object, and then we're looking for the price, which I don't remember what we called it. Is it amount?
It's price.
Yeah, it's
Price? Yeah, there it is. And then it gives us the API for price, and then we can pop it on there as well. And then we're going to hit next and add it to our page layouts for both of our record types, and then hit save. I'm not going to create this because I've already done it, but I want you guys to finish it.
Selena, do you mind going back for a second? The last step?
So we're going to go hit new. We're going to formula. We're going to currency. Two decimal places. And then we're just adding the fields that we want in our formula. So you want to make sure that you're on the tab that says advanced formula. And then hit insert, and then look for your fields in the second column. Because what's happening here is when you click on one of these things with the arrows, it tells you what fields are available from that object. And right now, we're trying to build a formula on our inventory object. So that little arrow is telling us there's more fields in there. So we're going to go in there, and then we're going to find our fields in column 2. So we have quantity. We're going to enter quantity. We're going to insert our operator, which is multiply. And then we're going to insert the second field, which is price. And then we're going to insert that one. So now we have a nice formula. Quantity times price.
Selena, while you're here, can you just do just to check and make sure your formula is correct? Because I do that. For me, that's a habit. Even if it's a simple one, I always make it a habit, because when I start doing complex ones, it's just forcing me to do it.
Yep. So the thing that Cynthia is talking about is just checking that the syntax is written properly. But one thing I don't want you guys to get caught up with checking the syntax and making sure it's entered properly, because even if you forget If the syntax is not right and you try to hit next, it's going to say bad syntax. It's going to give you an error. Secondarily, just because your syntax checks out, like it turns green and says no syntax error, Salesforce doesn't really know what you're trying to achieve, right? They don't know what we're doing. All Salesforce is doing is checking that the syntax is accurate. So if you create an incorrect formula with the right syntax, it will pass. So you always want to go back. You don't want to rely on this check syntax button as a, yeah, I did this correctly, because that's not what that button means. All that button is doing is checking that the syntax is written correctly. Salesforce has no idea what kind of formula you're writing and why. Only you know that. So what you need to do after you create any formula is go back to the object and make sure that it's calculating accurately. You have to go back and check. Never write a formula and take it as face value and deliver it to the client without going back and checking that formula. Okay? Do not rely on the check syntax button to make your record right or wrong. Sarah, as a consultant, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I would just super duper agree with go back and check and make sure your formula is doing the right thing. Because I think I write formulas all the time where I'm like, that works 100%. And then I'll go back and look at it and be like, oh no, that's not what I wanted at all. So double, triple check.
Yeah, it's really important because remember, you're building reports off of this stuff. Your users are relying on this data to be accurate. You make one little mistake in the formula, it's not going to calculate right, even if the syntax checks out. So, you know, when I'm teaching classes, I just always like to point that out. It's a great habit to get into of clicking check syntax just to make sure that your syntax is written correctly. Just don't rely on it as being the end all be all. And then always go back and check that it is doing what you want it to do. So if I were to go back and look at my inventory item here, I can see my price field is $43.95, right? I see my quantity field is 1. And so what is my formula supposed to do? It's supposed to take quantity and multiply it by price to give me the total amount. So this looks correct, right? 40,395 times 1 is 40,395. So let's go look at that accessory object that I created for, item that I created for Andrew Young. Here, I have the fact that he purchased Michelin tires. They were $200. That's the price. There were 4 of them, and the total amount is $800. So I know that the formula is also calculating correctly for my accessories. So you guys haven't created an accessory, so we have to go in and create the accessory now. So does everybody have their formulas so that we can go ahead and create the accessory items to see that our formula is working correctly?